We have a jam-packed show planned for you guys today, as it's been reports that the Chicago Bulls prefer Tiago Splitter so much so they are trying to pry him away from the Portland Trailblazers. We'll talk a little bit about what that means and the other two names that are on the Chicago Bulls reported finalist list. And, of course, my favorite guy is now completely out of that running. We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, there are now starting to be talks among scouts that Caleb Wilson could actually be drafted higher than number 4, which could mean that Cam Boozer could fall to number 4 to the Chicago Bulls. Plus, with the reports that the Bulls prefer Keaton Wagler if they trade back into the top 10. On today's episode, not only are we going to talk about the fall of Caleb Wilson, the rise of Keaton Wagler, and also which pairing is better, Caleb Wilson and Keaton Wagler or Keaton Wagler and Cam Boozer. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. So we started off with the coaching stuff yesterday, so I'm going to flip it and talk about the draft stuff that we have going on today, right? So the first thing I want to start about is that, is Caleb Wilson still the favorite at number 4, right? He's been strongly connected to the Chicago Bulls for the majority of this process. Oh, by the way, wait, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 50,000 subscribers by the start of the 2026-27 season. We can only do that with your guys' help. About 42% of you guys that watch the channel every single day have not hit that subscribe button yet. Now, I know I post every day, therefore I'm in your algorithm, but make sure you're subscribed, hit that subscribe button. With that, let's get back into it. So Caleb Wilson, who has been widely mocked and the most commonly mocked player to go to the Chicago Bulls, right? It's there. He's been projected to be the number 4 player in this draft, but it sounds like right now there are some teams that are starting to at least put out fillers that they may prefer Caleb Wilson over Cam Boozer due to the athletic limitations of Cam Boozer. Now, this is interesting enough, right? When you look at Washington, Utah, Memphis, those are the teams that would have, one of those teams would have to take Caleb Wilson before he can get to the Chicago Bulls. Those are the 3 teams that pick above him. I have a theory on this, right? And here's my theory. This is not part of the reporting, I want to be clear on. But here's my theory on this, is that if any of those teams want to to test if the Chicago Bulls really are fine with either of those 4 players falling, is that putting out this fillers could lead the Chicago Bulls to feel like, hey, if we've fallen in love with Caleb Wilson, we may have to trade up to 3, for example, to get him. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the thing that's going to happen. And I do think that, like I've said many times about this draft, that this draft has projected to go pretty much the same way for so long that sometimes it just feels like some of they're putting out fillers or little things to kind of just make it a more interesting conversation than when it's been. So that's kind of my thought process on it when it all comes down to it. But I'll say this, right? I have been perfectly fine with whoever falls. You guys know I started this process off very early saying that Cam Boozer was my least favorite option out of those top 4 players. But I still understand that he still has a chance to turn into a damn good player at the NBA level, even despite the athletic limitations, right? I think he is skilled enough that even though to overcome those athletic limitations. And so if I'm the Bulls, I'm not giving up a lot. Even if if Caleb Wilson's your guy and he's the one that you want out of this top 4, I'm not mad if you say, hey, let's throw a couple seconds so we can move in, whatever it is. You guys want Jalen Smith so you can get another veteran in there. I'm not mad at that, right? But I think you want to protect your assets. That's the most important thing. You have to protect your assets. You have to do those type of things. If you don't do that, then it's going to be you'll end up it biting you later. And I know the 2027 and 2028 drafts are projected to not be as deep as this draft, but I still think you gotta get it. And this does come from Jonathan Wasserman as well, who does work for Bleach Report for Take That. But the direct quote, just so you guys have it, is there are even some NBA front office members who actually prefer Wilson to Cameron Boozer, whose athletic limitations have raised some skepticism. Certain scouts sound willing to bet on Wilson's open floor ball handling, mid-range scoring, and passing continuing to improve to complement the quickness, explosion, and defensive range that Boozer lacks. So that's what it is, right? So if Caleb Wilson is gone before the Chicago Bulls pick, take Cam Boozer. I think you just do that in regards to it, right? But seeing that Caleb Wilson has started to win some scouts over, it kind of factors into what we heard a couple of weeks ago, right? Where like my source said that, Caleb Wilson wants to be a Bull, even so much that if the Bulls were to make a promise he wouldn't work out for any other team, that would avoid stuff like this potentially, right? So we'll see. Like, we'll see if the Bulls believe that much in just Caleb Wilson, if they're locked in with Caleb Wilson, or if they are a team that, some of you guys have also said, like, Caleb Wilson is going to be there for Bulls at 4. Some people say that about Cam Boozer too. Let the board go where it's meant. The Bulls are in the benefit at being at number 4. They get to take advantage of who's going to fall to them. And that's just the reality of the situation, at least in my opinion. And I do think that the gap between these players are very tight when it comes down to it. So we're going to see in regards to that. But let's move on from that, right? I want to talk about another report that came out as part of the coaching report from Brett Siegel, in which he talked about the Chicago Bulls and the coaching search. Tucked in the end of that was a blurb about the Chicago Bulls potentially trading into the top 10 to go out and get a guy like Keaton Wagler. And so it seems like that's a guy that they may favor. This is the quote from Brett Siegel that says this: "If the Bulls were to trade up into the top 10, multiple personnel have stated that they believe such a move would be made for Illinois guard Keaton Wagler. Although a lot of uncertainty exists with how the top 10 of the draft will shape up, Wagler is being mentioned as high as 5th to the Los Angeles Lakers and as low as 9th to the Dallas Mavericks, signifying he essentially has a lock to be in the top 10. Wagler's recently involved in a big pre-draft workout with the Bulls recently hosted. We already know that. The players, Morris Johnson, those guys in there, but he does go on to say this. It seems obvious that if the Bulls were to potentially trade up, which will likely happen until draft night, they would do so with the intent of adding one of the highly talented guards inside the top 10. Whether or not Graham and Chicago could land Wagler would solely depend on what happens with the Clippers and Brooklyn Nets at 5th and 6th overall, respectively." So here's the thing that I'll say with this, right? Like, I'm never mad at the Chicago Bulls having a target and locking in with that target. And if that target happens to be Keaton Wagler, we've already talked about him. I'm not going to do a whole new draft profile on him. He's a scorer. He has legit size. The athleticism is a little bit of a concern there. But like I said, like most, even the guards that are some of the best dunking guards in the league dunk like 2 or 3 times a game. A season. So I'm not really worried about that, right? So the trade up smoke, that's the thing with it, right? The Bulls own 4, 15, 38, and 56, right? They also control all of our own first-round picks all the way up and from now into perpetuity until we actually trade one, right? So if Wagler can go as high as 5 and as low as number 9, it means that the Chicago Bulls are going to have to try to trade into that top 10 from number 15. What would that take? Would the Bulls be willing to trade an unprotected first? Because keep in mind, you can only protect it to top 10 now. So even, in that, a future first, whether in 2027 or 2028, to make sure they get their guy. And, it is what it is. Like, we've talked about the realistic trade options. The Kings could be one. The Hawks could be another one, right, as far as realistic ones, depending on what you're going to give up. I say this, right? If the Bulls are trading up, and I've said this before, it's not about just saying you get another lottery pick. It should be about a target. Because, hey, what if a guy like Braden Burries, who, I think that he has better two-way capability and he's a really good shooter as well. What if he's going to be there at number 15? And you don't have to trade all the way up if Keaton Wagler's already off the board. I think this is going to come down to on draft night. If Keaton Wagler falls past number 7, you could see the Bulls get back on the phone at that point. I don't think it's going to be a trade that happens before draft night. I don't think it's going to be anything like that. I think this, if it happens, it's going to happen via where does Keaton Wagler fall, if he falls at all, and then the Bulls make their move, right? And if Bryson Graham has identified his guard of the future and that's Keaton Wagler, so be it in regards to that. But with that said, I'm going to use this conversation to piggyback off into the new series that I said we're going to get. And you're going to get a 2 for today. So the thing that we've been doing now is looking at pairings at 4 and 15, ideally, right? Today, we're not going to look at 4 or 15. We're going to talk about Keaton Wagler and with either Caleb Wilson or Cam Boozer, what that pairing would look like, since reportedly that's what the Bulls are coveting potentially, right? And again, per rumors, take rumors with a grain of salt. Don't take it out as an absolute, right? So with that said, if the Bulls do want Keaton Wagler, and we know that one of Caleb Wilson or Cam Boozer are going to fall to the Chicago Bulls at number 4, what does each of those look like? Let's start off with Keaton Wagler and Caleb Wilson, right? What that would give you is that would give you somebody in Caleb Wilson who does create in the midcourt, in the open court as well, finishes really good, is a defensive monster, blocks shots, gets steals, all that type of thing. And then it gets Wagler, who has size, skill, and he is a guard that can keep the offense connected and also be an on-ball, off-ball scorer, right? So I think when you look at that, right, and how that matters into this team is that it fits Bryson Graham's philosophy. Bryson Graham, not even the slap. I'm not even talking about slap. I'm just saying when he likes to have players that do multiple things, right? Let's take Slap out of it. Slap has become too much of a focus with every conversation around the Bulls, from players currently on the roster to players that could be coming to the roster. It's not all about that, right? It's about drafting athletes. That's ultimately what this is about as my lights go out. It's about getting the athletes to this team, right? That's the philosophy. It's about getting athletes and players that can do multiple things. Keaton Wagler is a legit potential 3-level scorer at the next level. And you look at Caleb Wilson and his ability to guard multiple positions. The reason why it would work is, one, the physical presence of Caleb Wilson is legitimate, right? He's a guy that fits and checks off every physicality box that you can possibly look at. The ability to create an open court, all that type of stuff, the rebounding, block steals, all that, right? That is a presence that you bring to the court, right? And he is one of the cleanest fits for what the Chicago Bulls already have going on. A transition finisher, a weak side defender, a short roll attacker in regards to that. He puts pressure on the rim as well. And there's some potential in talk of him being a long-term, not long-term, but a small ball 5 in some lineups, right? He's not just big. He has presence in regards to it. Then you have Keaton Wagler, who has the skill balancing. He has all the offensive raw tools that you want. The tools that Caleb Wilson is, hopefully you're going to see him work on offensively, Keaton Wagler already has that, right? And so as a freshman averaging almost 18 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and shooting splits of 45% from the field, 40% from 3, and 80% from the free throw line, that's a guy that absolutely you can see being a 50-40-90 player. I once said that I would not be surprised if Keaton Wagler ends up being a guy who's like top 5 to 8 in scoring in the NBA for like 3, 4, 5 straight seasons. Like, he has that, right? So the appeal between the two of them would be Wagler gives the Bulls a big guard, another big guard to pair with Josh Giddey that has the offensive side of that. And I think that you look at that and that's just a really good fit there, right? It's not about bodies, it's about presence. And that's the thing that you have in regards to that. I think the fit with Josh Giddey is good. The fit with Modest Buzelis is good. You still need to find your big, and we'll see if the Bulls can end up doing that, right? But the fit just becomes clean. You have a balance of offense and defense all over the roster. Josh Giddey, offense, creation in the half court, creation in the fast break, rebounding. Keaton Wagler can rebound solidly for a guard, but brings the off-ball shooting, the on-ball shooting, this ability to stretch the floor where Josh Giddey is weak at from the shooting perspective. Do you have your forwards and Josh Giddey and Modest that can both rotate and switch? And then I said Josh Giddey with Modest and Caleb Wilson, and then you got to go out and find your 5, whether that's in free agency or in the future, whatever else. You may not find everything in this offseason, and that's something when it comes down to it. But I really like this lineup as well. Now, here's the thing when it comes down to it, right? If Wagler is the guard target, the question becomes about also which one is the better fit, which we're going to talk about Cam Boozer. But I like the fit between Caleb Wilson. I think it's built around athleticism, skill, and balance. And Caleb Wilson has the explosion, and Keaton Wagler, he has a lot of the speed, all that type of stuff. And I think that really looks at it. The main concern with these guys would be the half-court scoring polish, right? You don't necessarily have that. Wagler helps with that. Caleb Wilson isn't as polished as Boozer in the half court, but that's where Josh Giddey factors in and his ability to create in the half court as well. But let's look at the pairing between Cam Boozer and Keaton Wagler. What's the strength here between those guys? It comes about skill, processing, and offensive stability. Whereas Caleb Wilson is still an offensive threat, but he's a stronger defensive threat, at least initially early on. Boozer and Wagler will give the Bulls a much more polished half-court offense. The way that Cam Boozer can create as a forward, the way he can stretch the floor and shoot the threes, the way he rebounds, all that type of stuff. And then Keaton Wagler, the way he does the same thing, like, it brings a really reliable scoring structure to this team, a scoring structure that we have not had in a very long time in regards to that, right? It would make the game, Boozer and Wagler would make the offensive game easier on each other because I can see those guys developing a really, really damn good 2-man game. And then you have Modest who can then float out, do those type of threes. You find another defender at the 4, right? At the 5, those type of things. So, Boozer's ability to pass and create out the low post and the short roll. I just talked about Keaton Wagler and his ability to do the same thing, right? So that brings kind of that upward presence there in regards to it. And I think you have to like that if you're the Chicago Bulls. Like, it is a lineup that offensively gives you a angle and a benefit that you have not had in the Chicago Bulls team for a very long time. You have not had that type of balance at all. And so the spacing doesn't become a bit of a problem, which opens up lanes for Modest Buzelis to do his slashing game and hopefully up mid-range more, because one thing I'm so happy about as well, No more Billy Donovan being the coach, which means the mid-range should be back open for this team as well. So I think Cam Boozer brings that for this team, just the polish that Cam Boozer and Keaton Wagler would have. Your offense would be so polished when it comes down to it, and it would be a safer bet as far as offensively at least. Now, defensively, Cam Boozer is an active defender. The athleticism is a bit of a problem. People have said, like, well, Keaton Wagler, the defensive metrics have gotten better for him each and every month, I think, in college basketball. So there you go in regards to that one. But that offensive foundation, that cleaner offensive foundation that you would have with those guys, it's legitimate. And it brings a offensive identity shift. Now, Bryson Graham has talked about wanting to also shift the identity defensively, and this wouldn't necessarily do that, right? But I think the debate just comes down to, it's maybe the safer bet, right? In regards to that, maybe, and it just depends on how you look at it when it all shakes out in the wash. So that's what I would look at in those two pairings. That's kind of the thing that stands out about those guys: the Caleb Wilson and Keaton Wagler versus the Keaton Wagler and Cam Boozer matchups. It really just comes down to how those pairings end up working. But let me know what you think down below, right? If these are the guys, and I'm saying if because I'm not saying they're going to be for sure, but if these are the guys that the Bulls are targeting and they're able to get Keaton Wagler to add to Cam Boozer or Caleb Wilson, which one of those fits do you like the most? Personally, I like the Caleb Wilson, Keaton Wagler fix more because the offense-defense balance there, and I think that, it opens up the door more for Modest still offensively, whereas you have Keaton Wagler, Modest Buzelis, and Cam Boozer. Not only does his defense become a little bit more of a concern, depending on the center that you get, but it's a lot of guys that kind of need the ball to develop. But then again, Cam Boozer's a solid passer, Keaton Wagler's a solid passer, Josh Giddey's a solid passer. That it could just be kind of that open floor offense where everybody eats is the potential there as well. So let me know what you guys think. What is the cleanest fit you think between those two potential matchups with what we're hearing that Bryson Graham could be targeting? And then tomorrow we're going to get kind of more outside the box because I think tomorrow I want to talk about Cam Boozer and Jaden Quantance being the benefits and what that pairing would potentially bring to the Chicago Bulls. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. With that said, let's get into the last topic of the day. Reportedly, we are finally nearing the end of this head coaching search for the Chicago Bulls. And it's something that I know a lot of Bulls fans want. Some Bulls fans are worried that we will not have a coach in place by the NBA draft. I never really was worried about that aspect of it. I always thought we would have a coach ready by the NBA draft and in that place. But it seems like, according to Brett Siegel, this follows up with what we heard from Jake Fisher and Sam Vecini yesterday, as well as KC Johnson. So I think now that we're starting to hear just more and more voices all on the same thing, that this is finally starting to wind down for the Chicago Bulls. And so let's get over the details of this. So according to Brett Siegel, Tiago Splitter, he feels is starting to become the favorite for the Chicago Bulls as they are angling to pry him away from the Portland Trailblazers. We've already talked about what all these coaches bring. Tiago Splitter, a guy in what we've seen, what he's done with that Portland Trailblazers roster. Denny Avdia had a really good leap under him. Shaedon Sharpe, Donovan Clingan. Those players all kind of played their best basketball at some point last season or in the postseason under Tiago Splitter. This is a coach that did not plan on being the head coach of the Portland Trailblazers at the start of that season, so he didn't even have a training camp to fully instill his system. But if you watch this team play, you understand the difference between how they played under Chauncey and they played under Tiago Splitter. You see the different defensive philosophies, as well as how he brought in that European spacing with NBA philosophies, which is a really good thing when it comes down to it, right? So the thing that Brett Siegel said is that it comes down to reportedly the Bulls trying to sell Tiago Splitter on the long-term commitment and the stability that they're going to provide with this rebuild, right? And the uncertain thing around the ownership in Portland, that could provide him enough of what he needs to feel comfortable to make this move to come over to the Chicago Bulls, right? And so it looks like right now the Bulls are looking at a 4-year deal reportedly as well, right? So they're not looking for a placeholder. They're looking for a coach that they can sign to a relatively long-term deal that has a chance to really be on the groundwork and set the foundation of this rebuild initially, and then probably evaluate, all right, where we are as a team, where we are as a coach, where we are in our development, and let's figure out where it's going to go with that one. The Bulls aren't just hiring a coach. They're trying to find the voice of this rebuild on the court and in practice for this team, and that's the thing that stands out about this. So Tiago Splitter makes sense for a lot of reasons, right? He helped lead Portland to a 42-40 record last season. They got a playoff appearance. That's why we have the 15th overall pick. He already developed youth, and we've seen that in reality with it. And he does have a desire for long-term security, which shows, that is what you kind of want in a rebuild. Like, Of course, if it doesn't work out, you can fire him, but you hope that that works out. He makes sense because it's not just the same names that are being recycled. He represents a different type of coach and a path of chasing development, modern basketball, and alignment with the front office, with the Bulls are reportedly really valuing in this search, right? But it's not just him. Micah Nori and Ryan Schmidt are also the other finalists on this list, which means no Wes Unseld, no Chris Quinn. The Chris Quinn point of it, reportedly in the Brett Siegel article, is that Chris Quinn got tired of waiting to not get a firm yes that he was moving on to the next step for the Chicago Bulls and is now basically anticipating just staying with the Miami Heat. Brett Siegel even said at the end of that article that, hey, maybe Chris Quinn could get back on it if the Bulls give him a more firm answer. So for my Chris Quinn fans like I am, maybe it's not done there, even though it seems like it may be, right? But Micah Nori, we already know. It's reported by Brett Siegel that Micah Nori did leave a very strong impression on Bryson Graham and the Bulls leadership group, which includes Paxson. And I don't know if Michael Reinsdorf is sitting in on those interviews or if he's just kind of gaining the information. But Micah Nori has interviewed for multiple jobs. He's also a finalist for the Portland Trailblazers job. So, you know, the Bulls have two of the same coaches on their finalist list. Micah Nori and Tiago Splitter are both on the list for both those teams. But it seems like Schmidt's connection for Ryan Schmidt, the connection that he has to Bryson Graham, does make him a legit finalist threat for the Chicago Bulls. And I know that Ryan Schmidt is somebody who's not very well known, right? What he's done is not known. He coached over in the British Basketball League, where he won 2 titles over there as well. He was known as a really good development coach over there. He built one of the best development programs in the G League with the Raptors 905, where he was there from 2017 to 2021 as well. Then he was the head coach of the London Lions from 2020 and 2023, where, like I said, I think he won 2 titles there. And so this is a guy that has developed multiple players and is there who got NBA call-ups. Now, they didn't turn into stars or anything like that, but he has worked with NBA players. He has developed that, and he's has one of the more well-respected developmental systems around as well. So that's what the benefit he would bring to the Chicago Bulls. And also, for what it's worth, he has won everywhere that he's gone. With the London Lions, they won 3 domestic championships in his lone season as the head coach there. So it was 1 season, but they won 3 championships over there, right? So that's coaching as well. That's not just talent. And he instilled culture. He knew how to deal with personalities, all that type of stuff. So Ryan Schmidt and the connection to Bryson Graham is legit, but it seems like if Ryan Schmidt ends up being the guy, it's because Bryson Graham sees him as a young coach that can also be part of the groundwork here for the Bulls. And if Bryson Graham noticed something in him and said, hey, this guy has the makings to be a good head coach in the future, it seems like he just wants to be at the ground floor and get in early on that, right? And that's what it comes down to for this Bulls coaching search. So it seems like, per what we know right now, the final 3 are Tiago Splitter, Micah Nori, and Ryan Schmidt. Now, we heard from Brett Siegel that he feels Tiago Splitter is the lead man in this. My source, the same source that leaked some other stuff to me, had mentioned that Micah Nori may actually be the front runner, but that could go with Brett Siegel saying that his interview went really well with Chicago Bulls leadership and they walked away impressed from him. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's the front man in this race, but it does seem like finally the Chicago Bulls are coming down to making this decision soon, and it's about to happen. And if it does, great, right? Like that's what we all should want. We should want this team to get their head coach and to get the right guy. I know it's been frustrating. I know it's been a long road, but it's not about it being how long it takes. It's about doing what you need to do to get the right guy. And if Micah Nori ends up being the right guy for the Chicago Bulls, that is it. That's all that matters in the case like that. And so go out and get your guy. Get the right guy, and then let the rest of the chips fall where they may. So let me know what you guys think here in this. Tiago Splitter, Ryan Schmidt, Micah Nori. Who's your favorite out that bunch? Who's your favorite pairing to pair with Keaton Wagler if the Bulls can get him? Caleb Wilson or Cam Boozer? How do you feel about those pairings and what it means for the Chicago Bulls? But hey, news is coming. The draft is right around the corner. We're a couple of weeks away from the NBA draft. 12 days away from the draft. So, hey, we're going to start getting some stuff in forward progress here soon, man. But let me know what you guys think and fill on everything down below, man. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you ready if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.